My name is Elena Ward, and I was 36 years old when I finally stopped protecting my parents from the truth. The last message my father ever sent about my grandmother was 7 words long. Call us when there's something to sign. I was sitting beside Grandma Ruth's hospital bed when it came through. The room was cold, the kind of cold that seemed to live inside the metal rails, the plastic chair, the pale green curtain that never closed properly. Her hand was wrapped around mine, light as paper, and the monitor beside her kept making a small, tired sound every few seconds. I had texted my parents 20 minutes earlier. Please come now. The doctor says it may be tonight. She is asking for you. My mother had read it. I saw the little notification. My father answered from some private resort 2 states away, where they had gone for a much-needed break, after spending years telling everyone how exhausting it was to manage Grandma's affairs. Except they never managed anything. I did. I read his message twice, then placed the phone face down on my lap. Grandma opened her eyes. Not fully, just enough. Was that your father? She whispered. I didn't answer right away. There are moments in life when a lie feels kinder, but it still tastes wrong before it leaves your mouth. I looked at her, at the soft blue blanket tucked under her chin, at the thin hospital bracelet around her wrist, at the woman who had packed my school lunches, paid my college application fees in secret, and taught me how to breathe through disappointment without letting it harden me. Then I told her the truth. I said, he said to call when there's something to sign. Grandma closed her eyes for a second. She did not cry. That was what hurt the most. She simply gave a small nod, like something she had known for years had finally walked into the room and introduced itself properly. Then she said, Elena, take the brown tin from my bag. If you have ever been the quiet person in a family that calls your patients weakness, comment where you're watching from. I want to know how many people understand what it feels like to sit still while everyone underestimates you. The brown tin was in the side pocket of her old canvas tote. It was the same tin she used to keep peppermint tea bags in when I was a child. The lid had a faded painting of roses on it, chipped at the corners from years of use. I opened it, expecting tissues or maybe a rosary. Inside was a small silver flash drive, a folded note, and a key. Grandma watched my face. I made arrangements, she said. Her voice was thin, but her eyes were clear. I leaned closer. She said, I waited too long because I kept hoping my son would remember how to be a son. Then she asked me to record her. I almost said no. Not because I didn't want to help, but because the request felt too heavy for that room. The machines, the dim light, the quiet rubber steps of nurses passing outside. It felt wrong to make her final moments into evidence. But Grandma Ruth had spent her whole life being gentle, and gentle people are often mistaken for people who cannot see clearly. She saw everything. So I propped my phone against the water pitcher, checked that the camera was facing her, and pressed record. She looked straight into the lens. My name is Ruth Ward, she said, slowly. I am making this statement while I am of sound mind. Elena is recording because she is the only one who came. Her fingers tightened around mine. And then she began telling the truth. Not loudly, not bitterly, just clearly. She spoke about my father, Martin, and my mother, Celeste. She talked about the years they had used her name when it helped them look loyal, and ignored her when loyalty became inconvenient. She spoke about missed doctor appointments, unopened bills, birthday dinners they canceled at the last minute, and the way they had slowly trained everyone in the family to believe that I was just better at caregiving. That was the phrase they used for years. Elena is just better at caregiving. It sounded almost flattering if you didn't listen closely. What it really meant was that when Grandma fell in the bathroom, they called me. When her roof leaked, they gave the contractor my number. When she needed someone to sit beside her during scans, pick up medication, fill out insurance forms, or explain why the bank had frozen one of her accounts after suspicious activity, they said I had always been so organized. I had a full-time job. I had a mortgage. I had a life that I kept quietly rearranging around everyone else's emergencies. And somehow, in my family, the person who showed up became the person who could be taken for granted. Grandma remembered all of it. She remembered the Christmas Eve my parents left early because my brothers-in-laws were hosting a more formal dinner, leaving me to clean her kitchen while she sat embarrassed at the table in her red cardigan. She remembered my mother telling a neighbor, Elena doesn't have much going on, so this gives her purpose. She remembered my father asking if Grandma could release some funds early, because he wanted to renovate his lake house, then acting offended when she asked what had happened to the money she had already lent him. Grandma paused often while recording. Sometimes she closed her eyes to gather her breath. Each time, I thought she was finished. Each time she opened them again. Near the end, she said, "They thought Elena was invisible because she did not perform pain for an audience. That was their mistake." I felt something move inside my chest when she said that. Not pride, not relief. Something quieter, like a door unlocking. After the recording, she asked for the folded note from the tin. I opened it and saw the name of her attorney, a woman named Miriam Hale, along with instructions written in Grandma's careful handwriting. "Call Miriam when I am gone. Do not give anyone the flash drive. Bring the brown tin to the memorial." Under that, one line was underlined twice. "Keep the receipts, love." That was something Grandma used to say whenever someone tried to rewrite what had happened. Keep the receipts, love. Not because she was suspicious by nature. She wasn't. She believed in forgiveness. She believed in second chances. But she also believed that forgiveness did not require blindness. She died 43 minutes later. There was no dramatic final sentence. No movie goodbye. She just looked toward the window, squeezed my hand once, and left. For a while, I sat there without moving. The nurse came in quietly and turned off the monitor. She touched my shoulder and asked if I needed anyone called. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because I had already called them. They came the next afternoon. Not to the hospital, to Grandma's house. My parents arrived in their white SUV. My mother wearing oversized sunglasses and a linen scarf. My father holding a coffee he had clearly stopped for on the way. They looked rested, slightly annoyed, like people who had been inconvenienced by bad timing. My mother hugged me in the driveway with one arm. "Oh, honey," she said, for the benefit of the neighbor across the street. "This must have been so hard for you." Then she leaned back and lowered her voice. "Where is her purse?" I stared at her. She gave me that tight smile I had known my whole life, the one that meant I was expected not to embarrass her by reacting honestly. "Your father needs to check for documents," she said. "We don't want things getting messy." Things. That was what Grandma became as soon as she was no longer alive enough to serve their image. Things. My father was already at the front door, trying keys from his own ring. None of them worked because Grandma had changed the locks 6 months earlier, after several bank statements went missing. He turned to me. "Open it. Not please. Not can you. Open it." I took the key from my bag, not the one from the brown tin, the normal house key Grandma had given me years ago. I unlocked the door and stepped inside first. The house smelled like lemon polish and old books. Her slippers were still beside the sofa. A half-finished crossword sat on the coffee table, with her reading glasses folded beside it. The red cardigan was draped over the back of her chair. My mother walked past all of it without looking. She went straight to the desk. My father started opening drawers. I said, "Miriam Hale has everything." He froze. My mother turned. "Miriam?" she asked. "Grandma's attorney." My father's jaw tightened. She had no reason to involve an attorney without discussing it with me. I looked at him then. Really looked. He was not grieving. He was calculating. I said, "She had many reasons." My mother inhaled sharply, the way she always did when I stepped 1 inch outside the role she had assigned me. "Elena," she said softly, "this is not the time for attitude." I almost answered. Then I remembered Grandma's line. "Keep the receipts, love." So I said nothing. That silence bothered them more than any argument would have. The week before the memorial was a strange, quiet war. My parents called relatives before I could. They used words like unexpected, devastating, devoted son, complicated medical situation. My mother posted a black and white photo of Grandma on social media, with a caption so tender that cousins I had not heard from in years commented with broken hearts and prayer emojis. She wrote, "A mother's love is eternal." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I put the phone down. My brother Adrian called me that night. He had always been the golden one, though not because he was cruel in the same way. Adrian's talent was absence. He drifted in and out of family life, charming everyone when he appeared, and avoiding responsibility when things became practical. He said, "Mom says you're making this weird." I was standing in Grandma's kitchen, washing the mug she had used the morning before her stroke. I asked, "Did Mom tell you Dad refused to come to the hospital?" He sighed. "Elena, They were away. You know how Dad gets with travel changes. I dried the mug slowly. She was dying. There was silence. Then he said, "I'm not saying it was great. I'm just saying maybe don't turn the memorial into a courtroom." That sentence stayed with me. A courtroom. It was strange how people who benefited from silence always called the truth an attack. The memorial was held the following Saturday at the small community chapel Grandma had attended for 27 years. It had wooden pews, cream walls, and a narrow aisle lined with white flowers. Nothing expensive, nothing grand. Exactly what she would have wanted. I wore a simple black dress and Grandma's small pearl earrings. The brown tin was in my handbag. My parents arrived 10 minutes late. Not late enough to miss anything. Just late enough to be seen. My mother walked in first, dabbing at dry eyes with a folded handkerchief. My father followed with one hand pressed to his chest. Adrian came behind them, uncomfortable but polished in a dark suit. People turned. They always did. My parents knew how to enter a room in a way that made sympathy gather around them. My father accepted hugs with a lowered head. My mother kept whispering, she was my second mother, which was an interesting thing to say about a woman she had not visited alone in over a year. I sat in the front pew and watched the performance without moving. At one point, my mother slid in beside me and squeezed my knee. "Try not to look so cold," she whispered. I looked at her hand until she removed it. The service began. The pastor spoke gently. A neighbor shared a story about Grandma bringing soup after her surgery. One of her old friends talked about the way Grandma remembered every child's birthday in the church nursery. Then Adrian stood and gave a short speech about family. It was vague, polished, safe. My father was next. He walked to the front slowly, taking out a folded page from his jacket pocket. He paused before speaking, like a man containing great emotion. "My mother," he began, "taught us the importance of devotion." I looked down at my hands. The pearl ring on my right hand caught the light. He continued, "In her final years, we did everything we could to ensure she was loved, protected, and cared for." The room was quiet. I heard someone sniffle. My father placed one hand on the pulpit. "There are always complicated seasons in families," he said. "But my mother knew I was her son, and she trusted me." That was the moment. Not when he skipped the hospital. Not when my mother asked for the purse. Not when Adrian told me not to make it a courtroom. That sentence. She trusted me. I understood then that he was not only going to abandon her in private, he was going to steal the story of her life in public. I opened my handbag and touched the brown tin. When my father finished, he stepped down to soft applause. The pastor returned to the front. He adjusted his glasses and looked toward me, then toward the side door where Miriam Hale stood in a navy suit holding a sealed envelope. A small murmur moved through the chapel. Miriam walked to the pulpit with the calm of someone who had spent her life watching people lie under fluorescent lights. The pastor said, "Before we conclude, Ruth left specific instructions for a final message to be shared today." My mother's head turned slowly toward me. My father stopped breathing for a second. "I saw it." Miriam opened the envelope. "Ruth requested," she said, "that this be witnessed by those who loved her and by those who claimed to." The room changed. You could feel it before anyone understood why. Miriam read the first page. It was brief. Grandma thanked everyone who had truly shown her kindness. She named neighbors, nurses, church friends, and the young man from the pharmacy who carried her prescriptions to the car in the rain. Then Miriam read the sentence that made my father's face go gray. "My son Martin may speak of devotion today, but devotion is not a word, it is a record." My mother whispered, "Oh my God." Miriam nodded to me. I stood up. My legs felt steady. That surprised me. I walked to the small media table beside the chapel sound system, handed the flash drive to the technician, and returned to my seat. The screen at the front flickered once. Then Grandma appeared. She looked frail. Yes, smaller than everyone remembered. Her hair was brushed back from her face, her skin pale under the hospital lights. But her eyes were unmistakably hers. Clear, present, unwilling to be used. A few people gasped softly. Grandma began. "If you are seeing this, I have gone home." Her voice filled the chapel. "I do not want anger in this room. I do not want shouting. I only want accuracy." I felt my throat tighten. She spoke about love first. That was who she was. She thanked the people who had sat with her, cooked for her, driven her, called her, prayed with her. She thanked me last. My granddaughter Elena, she said, gave me the gift of being believed. I looked down. I could not watch myself being named. Then Grandma's voice changed. Not louder, just firmer. Martin and Celeste, she said, you have built a public story about yourselves as faithful caretakers. That story is not true. My mother made a small sound beside me. Grandma continued. She did not insult them. She did not call them names. She simply listed dates. March 4th, missed cardiology appointment. April 19th, request for money marked as home repair, never used for repair. June 2nd, Elena called after I fell. August 11th, Martin asked me to transfer property interest before I had surgery. October 6th, Celeste told a neighbor she was handling my care while Elena was sleeping in the chair beside me. Each date landed harder than an accusation. Then Grandma said, on the night my doctor told Elena I was dying, she asked my son to come. This was his answer. A photograph appeared on the screen. Not dramatic, just a screenshot. My text. His reply. Call us when there's something to sign. The chapel went completely still. My father stood halfway, then sat back down. My mother whispered, that's private. And that was the perfect sentence, because everyone heard it. Not false, private. Grandma looked into the camera again. I have changed my estate plan, she said. Not to punish anyone, to stop rewarding what should never have been rewarded. Miriam stood quietly at the side of the room. Grandma explained that her home, savings, personal belongings, and family photographs were left to me. Not because I was owed payment for love, but because I had been the one protecting the life inside those walls. To Adrian, she left a small education fund for his children, held in trust so my parents could not touch it. Then she turned to my parents. To Martin and Celeste, I leave the framed family portrait from the dining room, because appearances have always mattered most to you. A few people shifted in their seats. And I leave you a folder with copies of every loan agreement, every unpaid note, and every unauthorized withdrawal I chose not to pursue while I was alive. My father's face changed. That was the first moment he looked frightened. Grandma continued. My attorney has instructions to collect what is legally owed to my estate. If you challenge Elena, the full record goes to the court. The screen went black. No music. No final dramatic line. Just black. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the room did what rooms do when truth has entered them and cannot be pushed back out. People turned. Not all at once. Slowly, one by one. A cousin in the second row looked at my father as if seeing him properly for the first time. Grandma's neighbor covered her mouth. Adrian stared at the floor. My mother's handkerchief sat crumpled in her lap, forgotten. My father stood. This is inappropriate, he said. His voice was too loud. Miriam stepped forward. Mr. Ward, she said calmly. Your mother anticipated that response. He pointed at me. She manipulated her. I did not answer. Miriam did. Ruth was evaluated by her physician the same evening and by me 2 days before. She was competent. The documents are valid. My mother turned to the room, desperate now. You don't understand our family. That was when Mrs. Alvarez, Grandma's neighbor, stood from the third row. I understand enough, she said. I drove Ruth to the clinic twice when you didn't answer. My mother sat down as if her knees had failed. My father looked at Adrian, waiting for support. Adrian did not move. That may have been the first honest thing my brother ever did in that family. The service ended quietly after that. No one applauded. No one shouted. People lined up to hug me, and for once, they did not tell me to be patient, forgiving, understanding, or careful with my parents' feelings. They simply said, I'm sorry, and I realized how long I had been waiting to hear those 2 words from anyone. My parents left before the burial. My father sent me 14 messages that night. The first said I had humiliated him. The second said Grandma had been confused. The third said attorneys were parasites. By the 8th, he was asking whether we could resolve this privately. By the 14th, he wrote, Your grandmother would hate what you're doing. I almost replied. Then I looked at the brown tin on my kitchen table. Keep the receipts, love. So I forwarded every message to Miriam. The months that followed were not clean or easy. Real consequences rarely arrive like thunder. They arrive through letters, deadlines, unanswered calls, and people slowly realizing you are no longer available for the role they assigned you. My parents tried to contest the will at first. Then Miriam sent their attorney copies of the signed loan agreements, bank records, and Grandma's written notes. They withdrew the challenge within 3 weeks. They had to sell the lake house. My mother told relatives it was because they were downsizing emotionally. Nobody believed her, but some people pretended to, because pretending is easier than rebuilding a family story from scratch. Adrian called me 2 months later. He apologized. Not perfectly, not beautifully, but honestly enough. He said, "I knew you were doing more than everyone said." I answered, "Knowing and saying nothing are different things." He was quiet. Then he said, "I know. We are not close now, but we are truthful." That is something. As for my parents, I have not seen them since the memorial. They still send messages sometimes through other people. My mother writes long emails with subject lines like, "Family healing and moving forward." My father leaves voicemails that begin calmly and end with old anger. I do not listen to them anymore. I keep them in a folder, not because I plan to use them, because I am done forgetting. I moved into Grandma's house in early spring. The first night there, I sat in her kitchen with a cup of peppermint tea from the brown tin. The house was quiet in a way that did not feel empty. Her red cardigan was folded over the chair beside me. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window over the sink. For the first time in my life, I did not feel like I was waiting for someone to need me. I was just there, breathing, safe. People ask if playing the video gave me closure. I don't think closure is one moment. I think closure is what happens afterward, when you stop explaining reality to people committed to misunderstanding it. The video did not fix my family. It revealed it, and that was enough. Grandma did not leave me revenge. She left me proof. She left me a home where love had actually lived. She left me the courage to stop carrying people who only called me family when they needed my hands. Sometimes, in the evening, I still sit at her kitchen table and read her old recipe cards. Her handwriting leans slightly to the right. Every card has some little note in the margin. More cinnamon, less salt, let it rest. That last one always gets me. Let it rest. So that is what I am learning to do. I let the lies rest where they fell. I let my parents live with the story they wrote. And I let myself live in the quiet truth my grandmother protected until her very last breath. My name is Elena Ward. I was the one they thought would stay silent. And for a long time, I did. But silence is not always surrender. Sometimes silence is just the sound a woman makes while she is gathering every receipt.